welcome everybody to this month's Tuesday Talks on This Is How You Block Book. We've got our lovely guests, Amber Hansen and Jacob Deaton, joining us. I am Jessica Rosenblatt. I am the Executive Director of the Ohio Arts Professionals Network, and we put these free Tuesday Talks out there monthly for our members and non-members to tune in and learn best business practices and things that are going on in our industry. I want to quickly introduce both of our hosts. Today we've got Amber Hansen. Not only is she a fabulous board member of OAPN, she's also the president of national touring with Bicoastal Productions. And we've got Jacob Deaton, who is an agent with the Georgia Players Guild. He's been a long time member and a great friend to all of us in this industry. So I want to quickly pass this off to Amber to get this conversation started. Take it away, Amber.
Thank you. So yeah, this came up because it seems like every consortia they want to get to like part of the benefit is to block book with the other presenter members and networking. So um, I, as a presenter, always had a hard time block booking, and I think everybody does because it's the presenters who get together and say, we want to book this show. This is the time that we do it. And when I was a presenter, I was like, I need the Friday and Saturday. And then so everybody was like, forget it, but occasionally people were like, I'll take the Thursday, I'll take the Sunday. And then inevitably we either forget about it or somebody says, oh, I can't do that date anymore, and the entire block falls apart. So um, I think that it's really up to the agents to take back control over facilitating the block booking process, because really that's our job. That's what we do on a regular basis. So our Jacob and I got together and we've been brainstorming it. We brainstormed it at the Tennessee presenters meeting. We also talked a lot about it at Arts Market. And, it kind of came out of Arts Market last year when they had the winter block booking meeting. And me as an agent, I was like, hey, I never heard anything about, the shows that we presented. Whatever happened with that? And it's a kind of always the same story where there's a presenter who's the blockhead. They get the list, they get really busy, and they don't report back, or they're too scared, like they're being too polite. They're like, I didn't want to tell you that no one was interested in your artist. And I'm like, you're not hurting my feelings. I'm not the artist. I want to know whether my artist is of interest or not. It's a no is as good as a yes, because it's going to save me from trying to put somebody in your market that's never going to get booked in your market. So we've been brainstorming. I know everybody wants to block book. What are the effective ways of block booking? And Jacob and I have kind of come up with a system, also using AI, but I'm going to let Jacob explain that because I'm not going to be able to explain that properly. But ultimately, what we want to do is, as a member benefit for OAPN, is send out a survey to all of our presenters with different categories. So we're going to have a block booking session for venues that have a budget of $8,000 or under. They're looking for shows for 8,000 and under. Maybe they're in the 10 to 15K range, 15 to 20K range, and 20 plus. So that way agents can pitch things from their roster that fit those criteria. We also, it's also going to include what days of the week you're willing to do shows on. Are you seasonally based? Like, is it a September through May, or do you book year round? So that we can, as agents, can tailor our pitches and the shows that we can fit your programming needs into those block booking sessions. So really, it's going to be about 4 different block booking sessions. And Jacob and I also discussed doing it after APAP, because inevitably, that's when people have their dates. Like, it's usually February is when they kind of know these are the dates that I have to fill. When we try to do it before that, that's when people say, oh, you know what? I can't do that date anymore. I can't do that time frame anymore. We had a Broadway show come in. That's the dates that they took. So, um, you know, Jacob, I'll turn it over to you so you can talk a little bit more in detail and where the AI comes in to help routing. But ultimately, it's taking the interest from what presenters can afford and what they're able to do, and giving it to the agents to facilitate.
Right, which is technically a routed tour at that point. It's not a block booking tour. The block means that the presenter is leading the charge, going after the agent and or artist that then offers them a block of dates. So I think step one here is that we really want everybody that is here, that is a presenter, to participate. If you really want to block book, it's all about intention. And it's really all about participating and being willing to participate with other people. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not here to lecture, but to clarify, the block booking name, even though that we are taking extraordinary steps to help you and to get you going, has to come from a willingness from the actual venue themselves to want to do it. So, if you're here and you're a venue and you want to save money on shows and you want to do it, the data that we are going to help you by sending out like a survey through OAPN is going to help us be able to, like Amber said, give you the shows that are in your price ranges that you want. And then also it just gives you an opportunity, hopefully, if information can be shared back and forth, to partner with other people. It's important that you guys know who else is in your range. It's important for you guys to know what your hard yeses and nos are. Like if you know that 40 miles away, you can't work with that venue because you're pulling from the same audience, then you got to find somebody else to work with. I'd just like to highlight very briefly how this is done in other state consortiums, and how effective it is still at this time. There is a group of Georgia presenters that get together that blocked over, I believe last year they blocked somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere between 14 and 8 or 20 something shows last year. And they did it as a group of 5.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have the entire consortium agree on a block. Really, depending on the show, it could be as little as 2. And so I just think that it's really important that everybody realize that this is not moving mountains. This is just you finding like-minded people inside of your organization and working together for the betterment of all of your organizations. So anyway, AI is a great use of time to figure out how far away you are from each one of the venues and how that can work. If I understand that everybody, we assume that, or at least as agents and independent artists, we assume that all of you know all of you, but so many of you don't. Like so many of you don't know the first thing about another venue that's 50 miles away and program, or 60 miles away, that you would be a perfect routing partner for. Similar size hall, similar size intentions, but you're so wrapped up in your day-to-day organizations, because let's face it, you as programmers probably spend about 15% of your time actually programming and the rest of your time doing all the other organizational things, right? Going to meetings and whatever else. So, the idea here, step one, which Amber talked about, let's get good data. Let's figure out where everybody is, where they're going, what they want to do, and what they want to program, and what budgets they can fit into. Your participation in that survey will be very, very helpful. Step two, figure out who you can work with. And then step three, make sure you're in the right, that you guys have an aligned mission by the time we get to after APAP, I think. And when we actually start having these meetings, that all of you can find people to work together with. Okay. We want to save you money on shows. We want you to be proactive. We want you to know going into those dates, whenever there is going to be something on the other side of APAP, that exactly, like you've figured out there's at least one other person that you want to work with in OAPN, right? And that you guys have already had a conversation after APAP or leading up to, of what weekends you could potentially work together with, even if it's just 2 of you and it's just a Friday, Saturday, or maybe there's 3 or 4 of you and there's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? So the idea here is just working together as a team. And that's what we're trying to build and foster through all this. Amber?
Yeah, and really taking the the pressure off of, like, it's always, there's always a, the person in charge of the block is usually a presenter, and they feel pretty overwhelmed. And it's taking the responsibility of a presenter trying to put together a routed run of shows for a bunch of presenters who get, and you guys get busy and you forget, or it's like, well, this person fell out, so I guess the whole thing, I don't have time to try to go find another person. That's an agent's job. So taking it, basically, having maybe Jessica as the blockhead, and really all she's doing is the note keeper, and she turns that over to the agent. And then we, like, the point of this is kind of casting a wider net. So if there happens to be a show that like a lot of people are interested in, there's radius issues, we can cast a wider net. If maybe there's a time in the summertime where somebody's got, early winter or spring, and we can bring it back 8 months later in the summertime with a little block of people that can do summer shows, or there's a Christmas version of the show. So it's not, we're not stepping on each other's toes, but by casting a kind of a wider net, it creates more opportunities for presenters to get the shows they want. I know you guys want routed fees. I mean, that's like music to your ears. That was the same when I was a presenter. Like, just let me know when they're in the area, because I don't want to pay full price for this. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here, and make it number one, easier for presenters, but also that the agents are just sitting around wondering, like, well, I wonder what ever happened to that, because it seemed like everybody was interested in this show. And then nothing ever I never heard anything, so it's making the agents do their jobs, which we want to do, and help, and finding a way to make this work, because as far as in my 15 years, it's never really worked very well. So we're trying to, come up with a system that actually will work.
I think just getting the data, like Amber said, is going to be a huge step forward. I think in this organization, everybody needs to know who everybody is and what they're willing to do. And if they're willing to be, and not all this information, by the way, needs to be shared with us. There could be, we could ask all this information, and if you feel like it needs to be private, like, I mean, I don't mind. I don't think anybody would mind or care, but I also didn't think there's anything to really hide either. Like, all we're trying to do is just get the right group of people grouped together in the right way, so you guys, as Amber said, can save money. That's the whole point of this. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love coming to all of your venues at full retail. Okay. But what I would love more is if you guys called me and you said, hey, Jake, there's this one show we want. We have these 5 weekends of like 3 dates in a row that we could do. And we're willing to offer it to you at this. Can you make that work? That would be amazing. But all that does is the only thing that you guys is standing in the way is sharing the data across all lines, and be willing to work together and communicate together. So there's a lot of calendar apps that are out there that you guys can log into, jointly share based on your needs. I mean, just do a Google search. There's a million of them, where you guys can input data, share your calendar activities in a way that allows for people to link up. So that's probably something that maybe Jess or somebody in the organization could probably do, something that maybe follows guidelines and whatever. Because I know when you're sharing calendars with, who knows, universities and stuff, there might be permissions and stuff like that. That's way above my head. But there's a lot of calendars out there that will compare, or AI tools like that will compare calendars to immediately give you available weekends that is shared across all of these things. So these things exist. I think that's a really helpful thing in order to see if I'm venue A and Amber is venue B. If we can log in and share our information and immediately then get a hello, these 12 weekends we actually have in common that we could potentially program on based on all of the things that are, important to your area, right? Like, you have all your holidays blocked off, all your special events, any reoccurring things, that kind of stuff AI can really help with. Also, AI can really help with routing these things. So if you're trying to figure out, like I said, how far you are from each other, and then you put in, all of these, you can literally put in a list of cities or venues in AI and say, hey, give me a route that doesn't include, or that includes these parameters, such as like, I need at least 50 miles around my venue. I need like that sort of thing. It will literally route you around the state, in the best way possible. So there's a lot of really exciting. I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because it means that you're actually interested in saving money for your organization. And so yeah, I think I think that's a really good thing. So
Yeah. We're just trying, I mean, as a board member for OAPN, we're trying to create some, some extra member benefits in terms of not just a conference, but what are the member benefits? And presenters are always saying, well, we want a block book. We want a block book. Well, the block booking model, I think is flawed. So this is an open conversation to come up with a model that takes the facilitating and the planning off of the presenters and just gives it to the agents. And like Jacob said, we can use the tools, we can do calendar sharing through the OAPN website, I'm sure. But this conversation today is kind of like this is what we have planned. What do you guys think? Can you buy into this? And do you guys have questions, concerns, thoughts, comments? Jessica's raising her hand, but I'll turn it back over to Jessica.
Yeah, no, so this is all really great. And I think it would be great if we could hammer out kind of, I think, a first step towards this. I will share really quick what OAPN did at Max during their initial year. And I think there was potential in that. But again, I think this is what's putting it was applying the work to I'm sorry, no, it wasn't applying it to the presenter. We actually put it back on the artist. I think we could have tweaked this a little bit. So here's what we did, and here's how I think this could be better, and let me know your thoughts. So what we did, we had our block booking session. We went around the room. This was not a great thing, but basically everybody raised their hand. We would go through the artist, and if we had more than two people raise their hand, we put that artist down under that venue presenter's name. And then at the end, I like manually emailed each agent or artist with these presenters and copy and pasted their emails saying, hey, Chris, they were interested in Second City, Janet, Aaron, and, Tim were interested in Second City. And then I left it on Chris to contact the presenters, where it didn't really work. People got very confused that OAPN was in the middle. And so they were like, well, OAPN, we'd love for you to book. Right. So it was a little confusing with some of the newer folks. But if we are doing this post conference, because we're going to do it at OAPN's 26th conference, if we have our presenters there, instead of us going around the table, maybe we can have a conversation around a table. But what if they are filling out a worksheet that is listing anybody that was on a juried showcase, who they're interested in? I put that into an Excel. So under Janet's venue, sorry, Janet, you're being called out. Under Janet's venue, she's interested in 5 acts. Then this is a public document that just goes into a Google sheet. So now Amber, Jacob, Chris, all the other agents and artists have access and they can see who wants what, right? And so then the artist and the agent can take um, do their work to then reach out to those presenters. I mean, it's going to be public. I don't know if anybody feels like they would be offended if this was public knowledge for who was interested in what. But with that, if it's public and we have as many presenters as we can get together, who's interested in what, and we're putting that into a document, is that helpful? Does that make sense?
Um, I mean, I think for on a conference level, that makes sense. I think the ultimately though, like we there might not be, like the jury showcase is pretty limiting in terms of programming needs,
Mm-hmm.
especially like I'm looking at Olivia and she's doing 100 shows this weekend. She might pick one or two shows that she could be interested in the jury showcase, but I'm talking like about on like casting a wider
Bigger
net.
net.
long term, I think the data, like having the data live um, in the OAPN database, the member directory. Like we start after APAP, we do a block booking session based on the data that we collect, see how that goes. But ultimately, having all of this data as part of a member benefit where Olivia can go in and be like, "Hey, I was interested in this one show. I'm going to go into the member data and see the member directory to see what's a similar venue that's far enough away from me that I can look at and see
Mm,
that their budgets align with mine, at least for this show, and I can route with them. Then I can reach out
mhm,
to either reach out to the agent or reach out to the venue and see if they're interested in the show and they want to route it with me. Then
mhm.
that makes it long term. Um, but like, yeah, the question is having this information publicly available through the OAPN website. How does everyone feel about that? And
Well, there's a lot in the chat right now. Do you want to hop over here real quick?
yeah, there is a lot.
I mean, I would say that's definitely something that the board can have a conversation about and go to its presenter members and actually come up with a system that works. My most important thing is that I want, and I think everybody here wants presenter participation in the survey so that we can help them connect the dots, right?
Uh-huh.
Because again, the true definition of block booking, which is why we're all here, is not the agent doing all of the work. That's a routed tour. So we're very happy to route based on the information that is available. But presenters have to be connected with each other. Presenters have to want to communicate and work together. And then they have to decide how they're going to work together. And us helping and aiding in the conversation of being able to get this data to everyone so that we can encourage these types of relationships building is going to be supremely important for this actually to work. So I just want to make sure that everybody, because I know there's so many people, we assume when we say block booking and routed tours and stuff like that, these terms everybody just understands, but not often do they really understand really what that is. That is the difference. The difference is the agent is coming to with a routed tour, the agent is coming with them with opportunities. And on the opposite side, block booking is if there is a group of dates that the presenters want to work together on, they present that to the agent. So we're kind of doing hybrid dancing here with words and stuff, but I just want to make sure that everybody does understand those things just as a love kind of thing. So anyway, I think Chris has her hand up.
Mhm.
Well, just to comment on something that I put in the chat, because you're talking about doing the survey, but as presenters renew renew their membership in OAPN, or whatever, there's the data integrity, which is really everybody's talking about,
Mhm.
is really so key. And if it's one of those things where and this is an issue not just OAPN, but across the board, all conferences, all consortia,
Yep.
everything, is if we, can get the presenters to fill out their like a profile as to everything that they do, all of the different venues that might be single venue, they might have multiple venues, what their budgets are their preferred days of the week that they like to program, are there days that they absolutely can't. Everybody is in church on Wednesday nights, apparently, across the entire United States. There's nothing ever happens on Wednesday in the US except going to church, apparently. Um, I'm sorry, that just really, I have a lot of Bible Belt clients, and that's what we end up dealing with. Um, but all of those things, and even talking about the genres you book, it can't just be music.
Yeah.
That's just too broad of a category, right? Like there are presenters who like they book classical music or they book chamber or they book opera, like it needs to be very specific as to what they're bringing in, because that is, if you're a tribute act and you know that and you join OAPN and you can see that the presenter doesn't book tributes, then you don't need to waste your time contacting them. I think it's also helpful to, like Jake was talking about, where presenters can facilitate finding each other and similar venues,
Mhm.
to help Black Book, that they know that these other organizations are, they work with the route, they work with the budget range, all of those things, is helpful. But we need it to, like, we need, as agents and artists, we need to push that messaging, but
Yeah.
we also need to make sure that we're, you know, getting that information from the organizations who can help us facilitate that.
Yeah, and so Chris, I responded to you, but I think it didn't respond exactly to you. It might have responded to Gene, but we have that capability in our system. Like we built it out so that the presenter profiles, we know their county, their budgets, how many stages they have. It's whether or not they fill it out. So something that we can do and be more proactive on our end is educating our presenters what capabilities they have within their profile. And then also letting agents and artists know that if you are a member and you log in, you can use our database just to search presenters. And then all the presenters will show up with all their data. So I'm taking a deeper dive into the system. It's sort of newer. And I had, a membership coordinator for about 2 years who kind of had more of the responsibility of the back end. So I've been taking a bit of a deep dive into this, and I think that I will start creating some educational videos because yes, like we've kind of put these things in place that you're talking about, and so we can do so much with that as long as people understand it and participate with it. So it's on my list. So Chris, thank you for that.
Yeah, well,
Can you
and
make every field a required answer?
no, and maybe, and I mean,
I'm
I think,
kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I
but I think we
know.
need, but to your point, Chris, like there's no point in saying, do you program music? That means a million different things. So yeah, I think it needs to get more detailed than that. But also, like, I don't want to like as an agent, and I'm sure as like a presenter looking for somebody to reach out to route a show with, you don't want to have to click on every single member to see their profile. We should have like a living doc that has that stuff already organized and easy at the fingertips. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I will note too, I don't know about that one yet, but we do give the option to basically we put every category possible for genres, whether it's dance, ballet, dance, hip hop, every different type of musical genre. So we have that capability. And I'm actually logging in right now just to see what that looks like.
Well, and while you do that, we can all answer Karen Stein's questions because she has some good questions. And this is probably for the presenters. Do you like being contacted by artists? And if so, how? Personalized, individual, email or old-fashioned postcard, call, or other? And I know that varies across the board, but if you guys want to chime in, pipe up, or maybe put it in the comments. Um, and I think with the our more expensive big name acts selling better than less expensive, lesser known acts. We were talking about that at the very beginning of the meeting, and I think the answer overall is yes. People are spending their money on the big ticket items, like the kind of the, well, we might not see this act again. Let's spend money on it rather than, the smaller stuff. Everyone's seeing kind of the like I think what Chrissy said, the VIP packages are selling and the mezzanine is sitting empty. So that's kind of been the trend, especially this fall. I think overall, just to your point, Jessica, what I'm hearing across the entire country is this fall has been really, really hard. It's not COVID, it's more like 2008 recession type of
Mhm. Mhm.
numbers. Yeah, but I'll let you answer the other questions. Do you ever look at jury showcase acts from the previous year? Is it worth for the act to mention they did jury showcases at last year's conference? What say you, Jess?
I was writing some notes and I missed the official question. I'm so sorry. Repeat that one more time.
You ever look at jury showcase acts from the previous year? This is probably for presenters, actually. Sorry. Is it worth it for the act to mention that they did a short jury showcase at last year's conference? Janet.
I'll let
I'll
Janet
take
answer
it
that
on
one.
as a longtime presenter. I
Hmm.
kept my books from every conference I went to and my notes on every juried showcase I saw. And I did go back to those artists a lot and did book them from years before. If I liked a showcase, even if I couldn't use it for 1, 2, 3 years, I'd often go back and book it 4 years later. You can't use every showcase you see the next year. So I really encourage newer presenters to keep a hold of that information for every showcase they see because it may come in handy a couple years out. Um, and I also think that right now, I would change my mind about the way I'd want to get information from artists because email is inundating everybody, I think. Even as a retired presenter, I'm being inundated by email. And so I would say a more personal approach nowadays is not probably a bad idea.
Hmm.
But I mean, a person who's working currently might have another idea. The other thing I would say is, as the person who's the administrative assistant for the Max conference, um, the profile thing is a really good idea, and the survey is a really good idea. But Max is not a membership organization. So Max does not have people who are coming to that conference fill out an actual profile that's available, except for on the conference app during the conference period. And that app closes down in January. So if you haven't, as an agent, looked at that app since the conference, you have till January to look at it.
Thank you, Janet. And then the last question, I mean, I want presenters to answer this, but I also like just my findings from the field on the certain styles trending in the age of anti-DIEI attitudes and at the national level. I would say a lot of presenters like they're still sticking to their missions. You know, their missions are their missions, but in terms of like grant writing, they're being really careful with their language. And I think a lot of people are looking for, especially if they were getting NEA grant funding, they're looking for programming that at least fits somewhat into that criteria. But I think overall the missions haven't changed in for most, especially nonprofits and at a university level. But I'll let other people chime in on that.
Actually, I'm going to call out Emily from the Montana consortia here, who also has a system. So Emily, please chime in with what you guys are doing as well.
Thank you. It's so funny because I actually just got interviewed by a colleague from our consortia who's a presenter but also hosts a radio show on Yellowstone Public Radio, and he asked about this system. And so like on the radio at some point there will be me saying like, well, this is actually a huge experiment and we don't all actually know what's going on, but we just started trying to do it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at like what they do in Canada, but it's really like amazingly centralized, no surprise. But they have like one person who gets paid to deal with all this and be like the booking coordinator. And the person from I Want to Showcase showed me kind of the back end of that and what it looks like as he does the job. And it's like, wow, it's so organized. And like there's like they color code it's really centralized. Like the middle person handles all the details, and then they actually truly present a block instead of just having people like route and add on when they feel like it. But when they organize it that way, the fee, like the cell in the Excel document, it like changes color once you achieve certain levels of like cooperation. So it's like now we have 3 people on the block, now we have 5, and it like just like there's all of the endorphins that go off when you see that color change as the fee goes down. We're not there, of course, because this is the United States and I'm in Montana. Hi everyone. But I did sort of create a spreadsheet, not and without volunteering to be this booking coordinator, but I asked for within each, group of interest for an artist, I would ask for a presenter to like volunteer to be the communication captain, basically. And one thing I provided this spreadsheet for them and gave them editing privileges and offered to teach them how to use this spreadsheet because some of them don't. And the extra thing we did this year was I emailed the artist and every presenter who was interested in them to start an email thread after the conference to say like, congratulations, these are all the people who expressed interest in you. This is an email thread to get you started on at least lining up the dates. We're not at a point where somebody is going to be in the middle, like organizing a block with all those details, but we know that we can at least handle agreeing on dates that are going to work for the artist. And we had a follow-up meeting after that and decided that, for now and maybe forever, but at least for now, as far as like fees and whatever, like we're not setting up a block. It is more routing, like Jacob described, but the artist and the presenters individually one-on-one will deal with things like fees and contracts. But at least as a group, we can set up the dates so that way they make sense. And so far, that seems like the next small step for this year. And I'm still tweaking the system and trying to set up or thinking about what I'll change differently for next year. And I just have to say, as far as like preparing everyone to be involved to participate, like I have been in discussions with Jessica and some other consortia, and like it sounds like you're talking about like developing expectations and changing or adjusting a culture or creating a culture around how to do this. And yeah, that takes time and it takes a lot of repetition of like telling people how to do it before the conference, telling them how to do it during the conference, and then following up afterwards and reminding them to do what you already told them to do after the conference. And it might take a while, but I think that you can get there.
Well, that's great. And honestly, I think we are starting to kind of reform this collaboration between all of us consortiums here. Emily, Kyle, Josh, uh, the person who was just named president of NAPAMA, which was not publicly announced yet, and some of the other folks, we are all meeting kind of behind the scenes to do a lot. But this brings up a question for Emily, and then also Kevin. You just posted in the chat that you are, as a Canadian, if I want to showcase is already doing this up in Canada and the system is great, we all pay into it. I mean, we're on their showcase platform. Can we talk with them about bringing their system to our states? Like paying into that, maybe that's part of membership fees is going to, paying for this platform. If somebody already figured it out, does it make more sense for us to just pay somebody else to pull that in, or is it like not possible to bring in their system to our states?
That would be amazing. And I think, like how I just talked about, like you're creating a culture or you're changing a culture. I think that would involve doing it on such a grand scheme. It might be, I don't want to say that it's impossible, but that would be the challenge because this is, you could talk about doing it in Ohio. I can talk about doing it in Montana, but we're all dealing with artists who are touring all over the country. And what that system does that I think people might be uncomfortable with, to be frank, is that like it takes a lot of control out of the hands of the people who are not in the middle. And in the United States, I think both the presenters and the artists are really accustomed to having a certain amount of control over certain parts of that negotiation. Like the presenters maybe like, I don't know, I can't really speak for them, but like, there might be an issue of like feeling locked in when you're not quite ready to commit. And like, and I know as somebody who represented artists, like being able to be the main person negotiating fees and fully controlling that conversation was something that felt really important. So that would be amazing because it would make lots of lives easier, but we'd have to have like one person really dedicated to that job because it's not easy. And you'd have to get, everyone would have to be comfortable with relinquishing that control.
Mm-hmm. Anybody, there's a lot happening in the chat. Does anybody want to speak up on anything? Even as a presenter, I would actually like to hear some of the presenter thoughts, with OAPN at least kind of trying to take steps towards a better system here, and then working obviously with our partner consortiums, and then Kyle out at Arts Northwest is actually hopefully getting an AI grant to do this in the block booking world. Presenters on this call, if we start educating you on how to fill out your profiles, is that enticing to you? Where it's like, hey, if these folks have all of my data, then maybe Chris or Amber or Jacob, all these folks can better block book it. Is that like at least a good step one if we educate you on all the benefits of your membership profile? Olivia, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, I know at least from my end, we're wanting to play nice in the playground. It sounds like, having more presenter participation is something that's needed. It's what I'm hearing. And I'm in a position that I can absolutely offer that. Howard, is kind of in his transitional role and looking at the next couple of years into retirement and things like that. So I'm taking more on my plate. And I think that it's really important that, we, like I said, play nice. So absolutely okay with that. I just took a peek on the OAPN website and on like the profile, and I think that we have it in a good spot. There might be some details that are lacking, that are just maybe overgeneralized. Like we have 3 buildings, like I said, we have at least 3 stages that we can book for. And instead of it kind of being like that, we just fall into the 1,000+ category because we have 2 that are 1,000+. Um, so I think it's something that, we're comfortable with. If we need more data out in the world and more relationships out in the world, we're willing to do that. It's the starting the conversation that it sounds like you all have been kind of the lighting the fire of that.
Mhm.
And it's on us to kind of make those relationships keep going. And there's all kinds of excuses that can come up, which is we're all busy, we're all in the midst of it. But I myself am willing to take some responsibility and be on whatever calls I need to be on, and reach out to whoever I need to reach out to, however that works.
Great. Awesome. Olivia, thank you for that. Chrissy.
Hello, hello. Yeah, just going off a little bit of what Olivia said, I know for Springfield Arts Council, this is definitely enticing, and I think it could be beneficial. Um, I know specifically to us, we're just in a point of kind of revamping what our programming looks like since I came into the role about a year ago. And so a lot of organizations and a lot of previous relationships that we had, either people had retired, and so those we just don't have those connections anymore. But also we just don't, as we are revamping what our programming looks like, people that we have relationships with still don't really know what to offer us because we're not doing the same type of programming that we used to do. And I think that also comes into the uniqueness of I have 3 different venues that I book for. One of them is for an admission-free festival that, we book 25 acts in the span of 5 weeks. And it is, when we say we book music, we really do, one night it is a symphony, one night it's a tribute act, one night it's an original artist. We do a variety. But then we also have our performing arts series that is ticketed, and that's really what we're revamping right now. So I think being able to, in a profile, be able to be a little bit more specific about what we do and not just say like, oh, our capacity is 1,000+. Being able to be a little bit more specific, I think might be helpful in terms of one, knowing who I can kind of route with. So I know there are some agents, like I know Amber is super familiar with what we do, so she's always like, "Oh, Chrissy, I have this," and that's really helpful. But I don't have that relationship with everybody, so being able to kind of, like Olivia said, revamp sort of what the profiles look like, so they can have that more specific information, I think could be helpful on the presenter end, rather than, I mean, we all know we get 1,000 emails a day. I really do look at them, but then sometimes it's just, oh, 3 weeks ago, you sent me 15 emails. I haven't looked at those. It might be nice to get something that's a little bit more. I personally like the emails, but things that are a little bit more specific to what we're looking at, or what we're specifically looking for, could be helpful.
Yeah, well, and Tim, to answer your question too, I think having these details will like from having those details from that can help facilitate like the four people that you could block book with. Because I know you and I, Tim, have worked over the years trying to figure this out. And like the Ohio Star, they're only booking 2027 and you're booking 2026. So like those are questions that we have to ask and know about in order to know who can actually. And I called it, like to Emily's point, called this block booking, but it's not. Like we're trying, maybe we come up with our own fun OAPN term, but it's not block booking and it's not really routed touring. It's, I don't know, something in between.
I know there's a lot of conversations happening in this chat too, which is really great. We were hosting monthly presenter Tuesday talks where it was just a closed session for presenters to talk, and it could have been about block booking, it could have been about my elevator broke and who does elevator repair for a 100-year-old venue. But would it be beneficial, and would people want to? Because I sometimes feel like, even me, I see so many great topics come by through like PA presenters, Montana. Everybody has these great virtual sessions, and by the time the day comes up, my day is just so busy, and I don't always have the time to hop on. But is it helpful, I guess, for those that find interest in it, to have like a quarterly discussion with agents and presenters that talks about block booking or gives presenters a chance to hear? I mean, we were doing the pitch sessions, right? Where we had 10 agents or artists. They would give a 5-minute pitch. We would try to get as many presenters on the call as possible. In exchange for, we would select one presenter each session to win a conference registration. Is that helpful for presenters? I mean, Chrissy, Olivia, Janet, you're retired, but I'll still call you Tim. Is that helpful for you to even hear from, Amber, Chris, some of these other agents and artists for a 5-minute pitch, and then being able to say, hey, I remember these presenters, and it's maybe starts that repetition of saying, well, I know that I can work with Kent State Performing Arts Center or Marathon Performing Arts Center or Springfield. That was a loaded question. Would quarterly sessions be beneficial for presenters and the agents and artists if we did like little pitch sessions?
I say yes. My answer is yes. Sorry, you can't see me, but yeah.
Oh, Tim, you're muted.
Okay.
Still muted. Oh, Chrissy, I'll go to you before while Tim finds the unmute. Chrissy,
There
go
we
ahead.
go. Yes,
Oh, there you are.
my answer is yes. Yes.
Great. Okay, great.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but yeah, I just think it would be a nice way to help prioritize that.
Jacob popped, I think, a routing piece in the chat here.
Yeah, so if you click on the document, you'll see that I just put everybody that was here, and I just said, hey, if it was a 40-mile radius, like which one of you guys would play well in the sandbox together, which ones wouldn't? It came up with basically a proposed route or opportunities for proposed routes. This should be part of, the internal discussions of the presenter network. And, I will say that like the Georgia consortium that I speak with annually about our opportunities, and that many agents probably on this call has, or their organizations have, they have chosen to work together. They have made a conscious choice to be partners. And that's not to say they don't do deals with other theaters. That doesn't mean that they don't go out and they don't block with this other group of theaters that has an opportunity and they can be an asset for. But they know exactly their market. They know exactly how they can serve their market. Some of them have realized that they can't present on weekends because there's too much problems and competition in their area to compete with. And they found that their numbers are actually better if they do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday versus trying to program on a Saturday, because people are going to the city that's right down the street. So I would like to say that you have to know your role and be okay with your role. And these groups of of block bookings, again, do not have to include the entire consortium. I think that's where we lose sometimes the ability to follow through with all this stuff, was that we try to make them too big and then they all fall apart. If you start small and mighty, then I think that it allows the opportunity for things to grow beyond that. But moreover, it does provide a sense of simplicity, and the less schedules that you're involving, the less complex it gets, right? So that was just a very simple thought, like ChatGPT exercise I just threw up in the chat. Hopefully it worked. Was everybody able to access it? Okay, great. So I mean, very simple, right? You could type in, Jessica, you could type in the entire OAPN presenter thing and say, hey, here's all the information that we're aggregately getting from everybody. Tell me how to build 4-day runs through Ohio or 5-day runs through Ohio that are non-competitive, that align with all of the details that you have, that whatever, and it will do the work for you. So that's the reason why getting this data is very important for this process. We can literally use something as simple as ChatGPT to give us all the answers. And then we can all look at each other and say, oh, we should have been working together all this time. But now that we know, we can start doing that. And we have a lot in common. So it's just a way that we get this information, we marry it with AI. I think we're going to get some results. So,
Chris.
Yeah, and just to reiterate something that Jacob said earlier, or I think it was Jacob, it might have been Amber, but I think it doesn't have to be a 5-day run. I mean, you really could have 2 presenters coming in, and that will make all the difference in a tour. It could be
so true.
It could be, again, when he says think small, think mighty, it could be Tim, it could be you reaching out to 2 other presenters in Ohio, similarly sized, similarly budgeted, and similarly programmed, and you connect with them and have a regular meeting conversation with them, once a month or whatever, just to see what's going on, what's selling there, what's not, what's working in your market, so that you can move forward on that. And literally 2 or 3 dates just makes just the biggest world of difference with fees and everything else. Like Jacob said, it doesn't have to be the entire group delivering 15 dates. That would be amazing, but that's not what it needs to be.
Yeah, and we don't need to get bogged down with that. Like, I mean, we could literally figure out, with the size of Ohio to take into account, if based on all the data that you have that comes in from all of the different presenters, and we're able to somehow gather this information, we can input, like I said, all this information into ChatGPT, and it will, and say, hey, listen, can you give me ideas for, 3-day, 4-day, 2-day, runs that make sense. And it will literally divide everything up for you. And then after that, you can share the findings with the organization in the groupings, Jess. Like, you can literally say, hey, based on all the information that's come in, you 5 people this venue said you like Tuesdays. This venue says you like Wednesdays. This could be a route if you guys all decided to work together, and also your calendars lined up as to when you'd like to make decisions. So, and that's really the biggest thing out of even all of it, not just the fact that like there is somebody that's willing to work with you and that is a good match on paper. It's actually the thing about like saying, hey, I'm actually willing to program alongside of you and lay down my own personal feelings, wants to some degree, etc., and play as a team. Like that mentality, and finding people that you like-mindedly work with is very, very important to this process. And it's the reason why Georgia's block of presenters have been able to route people from Florida up and down to Florida for the last several years at unbelievable and unprecedented rates for a consortium. They've been doing, last year, I think they did or 2 years ago, I think they did over 24 blocks of 5 venues working together. through the state of Georgia. I mean, that's huge. The amount of savings that these presenters are getting is upwards to, anywhere between 20 and probably 40% on fees because they're offering 5 dates. Now, that's not going to obviously equate to every single artist that comes through. Every artist has their own whatever, but I'm just saying, I'm seeing some artists that I know on the marketplace hit at 15 and they're getting them for 8 all across the board.
Well,
And that's how you make money in this business, folks. So,
and I think Jacob can speak to this because Gina, you said maybe the GA presenters could share how they do this. And this is kind of like what we're trying to do is kind of how they do this. Like what we'll get as agents is here's 6 venues. This is the genre of programming they're looking for. Here's their budgets, pitch accordingly. So that's kind of what we're trying to do as well.
I can 100% facilitate that conversation for everybody in this. I can make the phone call today, and I'm sure Jess or anybody in that crew will hop on here and talk about how they do it so that you guys can replicate what they do. But you just need to understand that as a consortium whole, this means that inherently it's a community of everybody working together, but now you're starting to segment groups of people that end up working together. Okay. So the other side of this that maybe is like the side that we're not talking about is the fact that when these things work as they do, that means that internally there's going to be a group of 5, potentially a group of 5 presenters that program half their season or whatever in this way, and then another group of 5. And then you guys are now having to communicate in a way that's like, well, if this 5 gets them in the fall, we need to get them in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's something of that to consider as well, which isn't exactly, hunky-dory, everybody's working together, right? But the truth is nothing is getting done as it is now anyway, for the most part. So if you do silo people into these types of, things, that the runoff is that there might breed internal competition. But what's most important is that the conversation is had in the very beginning. It's like, listen, you don't have to only book with this group. This is just an option for you to do that. And also that the fall is going to learn from, or the spring is going to learn from the fall's mistakes. And if there's a third group, God bless, if there's a third group of 5 that has their own little thing going on, and they don't get the fall or the spring, but they're maybe in line to get the fall of the following year, then they get to watch the fall and the spring happen and to see if it's beneficial for their venues. And then they get to decide whether they want to partake in it or not. So there's advantages and disadvantages to this system, but the advantages in my mind far outweigh the disadvantages for the health of the industry and also the consortium working together.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation has been great, and I know we're coming down to the end, so I want to be mindful of everybody's time. Couple things that I do want to recap, and of course, this recording will go onto our YouTube channel in the next couple days. But I will be following up with everybody who registered for this. We're going to personally take some big next steps to make sure that our current presenters that we have, and I will say that I just checked our numbers. We currently have 48 presenters that are up to date with their membership, and we've got probably another 30 more in our expired, which we are working on getting all those folks up to date. But we're going to work on getting the data updated. But I also am going to talk with Chrissy and Olivia on the types of information that will be best suited so that we can tweak that before we start getting that information. I'm really glad somebody said the think small, think mighty, and the start small, because sometimes I think we want to just solve the problem over the next few months. But we're going to do everything that we can to start chipping away at this. And I'll have some individual phone calls and conversations with folks that I've got all of my individual chats in here. So I'm sorry to end this, but I want to let you guys go on with your day. Amber, Jacob, thank you so much. You guys will be talking a lot more. You'll be hearing from us. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for this Tuesday Talks. I really think this was great.
Oh, thanks for the floating clap. That was cute.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do all the fun Zoom stuff. Well, thank you, Jessica, for facilitating, and everybody. Hopefully this is something, the start of something wonderful.